the MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller. The teller.
The teller is here. We got UFC on ESPN+19. Joanna Jedrzejczyk taking on Michelle Waterson in the main event. And the co-main event, it's a great fight too. We got Kron, Gracie, a descendant from the legends of the game, taking on Cub Swanson, who in my eyes is a legend in a lot of ways too. I've been watching this guy for years, since the WEC days. He's never quite reached the pinnacle of the sport, but this guy is a true warrior. He's been in some of the most entertaining fights I've ever seen, and the guy's an absolute stud. So I'm definitely looking forward to that fight. Before we even get into any of this nonsense we're about to start getting into, you know how the teller does it. You guys, please pause this video right now. Hit subscribe on the channel. It means a lot to me. It goes a long way for the teller. Eventually, I might start making some pennies from doing these videos. But in all reality, it's just really about getting the notoriety for the channel. So please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get the teller's voice out there to all the thousands and thousands of people that like to make money betting on fights like us. So I appreciate your guys' time. And now, let's start getting into the nitty and gritty. UFC Tampa, ESPN+19. I'm telling you guys right now, this is one of those cards. I feel like there's some great opportunities to make money. I haven't felt like this so much the last couple weeks, here and there, some cards. This is one of the special cards. I see a lot of opportunities to make some big money. I already have one major play, an 8-unit play that's almost as big as it gets for me. Pretty much it is. And I'm extremely confident in the pick. I'm going to have about 1 to 2 more picks on this card, so we should be around 3 when it's all said and done. But I feel very confident about these 3 plays. For those of you guys that are interested, you know the deal. Get at me, DM me on Instagram, comment below. Either way, I'm going to be breaking down these fights for you. But I hope you guys are seeing what I'm seeing, because there's some great opportunities to make money on this card. And speaking of making money, it was a profitable event last weekend, UFC Australia. Thanks to the big man himself, Dan Hooker. That was my biggest play of the night. I was really high on Dan Hooker going into that bout. I felt his reach advantage, his leg kick advantage, his height advantage, all that was going to play into effect. Not to mention the guy's striking is really just jumping leaps and bounds every time he steps in there. The dude's an absolute stud. I want to see him fight Dustin Poirier next. That was a beautiful call out. And I'm telling you, watch out for this guy, Dan Hooker. He's the real deal over here. Other than that, man, Israel Adesanya, wow. Not going to lie, I had Robert Whittaker winning that fight. But, I knew it was going to be a very, very close fight. And I really think that it was a lot closer than people realized, because, yeah, Robert did get dropped at the end of the first, and that was pretty much the end of the bout. But let me tell you what, Robert Whittaker was throwing straight missiles, and if one of them would have connected and a couple of them were close, we would have been having a completely different conversation here. Sometimes you guys don't realize, it's a game of inches, and how just a slight little miss, man, a couple of those haymakers, like I said, we'd be having a completely different conversation. But a shout out to Israel Adesanya. The guy is really becoming a true star in the game right now. Other than that, I tried to warn you guys about Sergey Spivak. I said anyone that was betting tied to Ivasa, shame on you. Rewind the tape. You guys can listen to it from last week. Anyone that took that fight, I don't know what you guys were thinking. I mean, that fight, a little disappointed in myself for not really putting a play on Sergey. I kind of took a step back on that one. Jorgen De Castro, basically an underdog pick, very close. I had Jorgen winning that fight. He came through solid for me. And, other than that, I mean, the card was pretty good, but it was pretty much just extremely top-heavy with that main event bout. So I'm excited to see Israel Adesanya take on the Eraser in the next fight, the next middleweight championship fight, and we'll see how that plays out. Now, on to UFC Tampa, taking place not far from me at all. And this one's going to be a good one. In the main event, we got Joanna Jedrzejczyk taking on Michelle Waterson. I think that's an excellent fight. I'm a big JJ fan. How quickly people forget this girl, not too long ago, this girl was really, really at the top of the sport, one of the greatest champions we had in the UFC. She had a couple setbacks, Tudor Rose Namajunas and then Valentina Shevchenko. So, no real shame in those losses. The second bout with Rose was extremely close. Yeah, I get it, though. Her chin's look questionable. We're going to get into that fight later. And then in the co-main event, we got Kron, Gracie. Like I said, a descendant of legends from the sport. His dad, A lot of people believe that his dad, Rickson Gracie, was the greatest Gracie fighter to ever come from that family. So this guy is really, he's coming from the root. You know what I mean? He's really coming from right from the root of greatness with the Gracie family. So I'm gonna be breaking down that fight. I'm extremely excited to watch that fight and break down that fight too. And with no further ado, let's get it right into the first bout of the evening. We got JJ Aldrich taking on Lauren Mueller. She likes to go by the Princess Tiger. I don't know about all that, but this girl, believe it or not, she's only 27 years old, Mueller. So, she looks a little bit older, but she's right in the prime of her career. I really haven't been impressed from anything I've seen from this girl ever since The Ultimate Fighter, even to making her UFC debut and whatnot. Really just haven't been that impressed. She has one win over Shayna Dobson. After that, she loses 2 in a row. She loses a unanimous decision against Pauliana Botello. She's a feisty fighter. She's pretty athletic and she's strong, and I guess no real shame in that loss. She loses by armbar to Yan and Wu. I get it. Those girls, they have a name and whatnot. Lauren Mueller, she's strong for sure. She's strong. She can grapple. She's a muscular chick, but I like JJ Aldrich here. I just like her for the fact that her boxing is crisp. She has good takedown defense. And she's one of the few women that you could tell she's very technical with her hands. She knows what she's doing. She looked great in her last bout against Macy Barber. Even though she lost that fight, a lot of people are really high on Macy Barber. And I think rightfully so. I think Barber is the real deal. And, JJ looked excellent in that fight in the first round. I think even in the beginning of the second round too, until she ended up losing that fight. But like I said, no real shame in that loss. Before that, she beats Pauliana Viana, Danielle Taylor. Just these regular little below average type of fighters, but she's handling business. And like I said, I really like what I've seen from her as of recently on tape and whatnot, just with her takedown defense and then letting her hands go. If she's able to keep this fight on the feet, I definitely give her the advantage on the feet, and I think that she'll outbox Mueller. So it's kind of what I see happening. Maybe Mueller can somehow control her and make it a nasty fight where she's getting takedowns and getting some ground and pound and whatnot. I don't see that happening, though. I got JJ Aldrich to win this fight. In the next bout, we got the Italian Dream, Marvin Vettori, taking on Andrew Sanchez. I think this is definitely going to be an entertaining fight right here. I'm definitely leaning Marvin Vettori. We'll cut to the chase. Obviously the line's high. He's about a minus 300, but I think this is Vettori's fight all day. Andrew Sanchez has some good wrestling. That's definitely his only path to victory, in my opinion. He's got to work in a lot of takedowns. The cardio has to hold up for Sanchez, which we've seen it not in the past. We've seen him gas out and blow fights like that. On the other hand, you got this guy, Marvin Vettori, training over at King's MMA with Rafael Cordero, one of the best striking coaches in the game. I put him up there with Henry Hooft over here at Hard Knocks 365. We're talking about some of the best striking coaching that you can get on planet Earth, period, especially when it comes to just strictly MMA striking. This guy, his striking's looked very, very good as of recently. I expect to see some finishes now from Vettori. I really do. Just watching him in these fights as of recently. Don't forget, man, he had a split decision loss against Israel Adesanya. That fight could have went either way. That could have really set the trajectory for his career as of right now. Look at Israel Adesanya. He just became the unified middleweight champion. If he would have won that fight, it would have been, for Vettori, that would have been 3 in a row. He's starting to get some guys with some big names, Cesar Fahad. He did have a draw against Amari Akhmedov. Amari Akhmedov is a very solid fighter. He has some cardio issues as well, but that guy is very skilled. So, and I just think Vettori is really starting to put it all together. He's only 26 years old. And, like I said, Andrew Sanchez, this guy, he's a solid wrestler. He has some very solid wrestling credentials. He has decent boxing as well, but I just don't think he has anything on the feet for Vettori. I really don't see it. I think Vettori is going to sprawl and brawl, out-volume Sanchez, possibly get that finish. Andrew Sanchez gets a little sloppy in the later rounds. He gets a little tired. And I think this is Vettori's fight to win. I'd be really surprised if he doesn't pull it off. And I would like to see him get a finish now. I want to see him get a nice knockout here, start to put a stamp on his name in the UFC, and try to work his way up to the top of the UFC middleweight division and try to get that rematch with Israel Adesanya. Don't forget, man, a lot of people had him winning that fight, so I think that's the path for him right now. And as we take a look into the next fight, we got Miguel Baeza taking on Hector Aldana. For those of you guys that remember Miguel Baeza, he was just on Dana White's Contender Series this past season. Pulled off the unanimous decision. Looked pretty good. Definitely proved to be a prospect. He's 7-0, training over at MMA Masters, one of the premier gyms, I would say. Maybe not the top tier premier gyms, but it's a solid gym. I'll tell you that much. So this guy, he has all the attributes, man. He's a big boy for the weight division. He's athletic. Definitely has power. He could stop anyone that he fights, man. If he connects, this guy's putting you out. Has a lot of finishes on his resume. And I like what I've seen from him on tape. The guy's a solid fighter. Then you got a guy like Hector Aldana. Hector Aldana, this guy, in my opinion, is one of these tough, hard-nosed Mexican fighters. Not the most skilled. Like I said, he's a tough dude. He's coming off 3 losses in a row. He lost to Loreno Staropoli, who I believe is a pretty skilled fighter, the Argentinian. Then he lost to Kenan Song. He got finished by Kenan Song. That's not a good look. And then, before that, he loses to Enrique Martin. Got choked out in that fight, too. And if you look at the guys that he's defeated, it's just, a lot of lower-level, South American-type fighters. I just think that Miguel Baeza is going to be the superior fighter here. I think he's going to be more athletic. I think he has really everything going for him in this fight. Fighting in his home state. This is his fight to win for sure. Baeza should pull this off. I don't know if he gets the finish. Aldana is a tough dude, but he's been finished before by strikes. So I could see Baeza just winning this on the feet. Like I said, possibly getting a finish, mixing in some takedowns, raining some ground and pound on him as well, and just pulling the fight off. So, yeah, I'll take Baeza to win this fight for sure. Moving and grooving. We'll slide right into this next fight. We got Marlon Chito Vera taking on Andre Ewell. Both these guys are very skilled fighters. These guys, both of them have a name on them. Marlon Chito Vera is a guy that I really like. This guy he's really been looking impressive as of recently. He just continues to pull off victories inside the octagon, even coming back from bouts which he was losing and still coming back, pulling off the finish. He finished Nolan Hernandez, not really a notable name, but still got the finish in the second round. That was nice. Guido Canetti, Frankie Saenz, Luigi Beren. He's on a 4-fight win streak, but I know it's not the most notable names, but the guy's skilled, man. You can see that his game's evolving. I like his striking. His striking is looking to be very polished in there. And, he's very well-rounded, has the jiu-jitsu to go along with his striking. This is going to be a pretty good test for him right here. Andre Ewell, this is a guy that, he has some skills on him. He looked good in his last fight against Anderson Dos Santos, pulled off the unanimous decision. Anderson Dos Santos is a guy that I find him to be a skilled fighter, so that's a nice little win. Of course, you remember Ewell did beat Renan Barão. Of course, this is long after Barão was the Barão that we used to know after TJ Dillashaw took his soul. So that didn't really say much, and that was a split decision. Really, when everyone else at the time, and they're going in there just taking Barão out. So, actually finishing the fight. So, I don't know. I guess you could take that as a win, as a split decision. But other than that, not a lot of big names. Nathaniel Wood was a fight. He got finished in that one. That was a nasty finish, and Nathaniel Wood really put his name on the map with that fight. So, you could see that Ewell can be submitted. That was a nasty sub that Wood pulled off on him. Marlon Chito Vera does have some sub skills. Marlon Chito Vera, like I said, very good striking, good Muay Thai. This is going to be a close bout. I'm going to lean Chito Vera. I think Chito Vera pulls it off. This guy is shown to be a winner. Even in fights, like I said, he could be losing a fight. He comes back, pulls off the finish. Some fights he just runs away with it and just outclasses some of these guys. And he finishes fights. And I just pretty much like everything the guy stands for. He's a family man. For those of you guys that follow him on Instagram, you guys know what I'm talking about. This guy's the real deal. And he's also a savage. He'll go in there and he'll take your head off. So, yeah, I'm taking Chito Vera to pull this fight off. Hopefully he even gets a finish. Look at the flyweight division alive and well. These two guys right here at the top of the division, I think whoever wins this fight is going to make a push to eventually possibly get a title shot. These guys are pretty much at the top of the flyweight division here. Let's just talk about the flyweight division here for a second, because I'm happy to see that there hasn't been any talks about removing it as of recently. All those little bullshit talks kind of went away. We got guys like Joseph Benavidez, Jussier Formiga, Deiveson Figueiredo, who we're going to be talking about here in a second. Sergio Pettis, who looked very impressive in his last fight. It's definitely a more natural flyweight fighter. Tim Elliott, who we're going to be talking about here as well. Brandon Moreno. There's guys here. We got some newcomers like Askar Askarov. I like Matt Schnell as well. So I want to see this division, play out. I want to see Cejudo continue to defend his belt. And don't be surprised if, eventually you see some new guys taking the belt over here. Sergio Pettis is a very skilled fighter. And, I'm ranting about the division, but basically what I'm getting at is I'm happy it's still around. It's live and well. And Deiveson Figueiredo, he's taking on Tim Elliott here. Deiveson Figueiredo is a very athletic. He's a very entertaining fighter, very well-rounded. His striking is very powerful, has good jiu-jitsu. He's a solid fighter. Tim Elliott, this guy's been around the block, for a long time now. For those of you guys that remember, he was one of the first fighters that kind of put up a good match against Demetrius Johnson, who at the time everyone was talking about how he was invincible. Tim Elliott looked very good in that bout. He had a lot of top position in that fight, scored some points. Like I said, he was on top a lot. His grappling is very good. So, one thing I want to just say is be careful because the line's high on Deiveson Figueiredo. I get it. I'm leaning towards him to win the fight, but Tim Elliott is a live dog in this bout, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins the grappling exchanges and gets some points on top, rains down some ground and pound. Deiveson Figueiredo, his UFC debut was against Jared Brooks, who, not to harp on that too much too, Jared Brooks is a guy I want to see back in the UFC. I don't know what's going on with that. Throw him into the flyweight top 10 as well. I don't know why he was cut coming off a win. I believe that was around the time that the UFC was contemplating getting rid of the division. But Jared Brooks, I had him beating Deiveson Figueiredo in that fight. It was a very close fight, split decision. Jared Brooks had a lot of top time. He out-grappled him. And, that could be playing, a similar type of story in this bout right here. I could see Tim Elliott out-grappling Figueiredo at times. So Tim Elliott should be the bigger fighter when the cage is closed. So just be careful for those of you guys that are betting big money on Figueiredo. But I get it. I like this guy Figueiredo as well, man. This guy's tough. He's going to bring the fight. His striking is nice. It's nice and crisp. He throws the 1-2 very powerfully. The dude can finish the fight. He could choke your ass out. He's a stud. So we'll see what happens with this fight. Be careful. If you're betting it, make sure you're making the right decision. And, I guess I'm going to lean Figueiredo to win this fight. But Tim Elliott is a live dog. I could see him easily winning this fight. All right, let's transition to this next bout. We got Max Payne Griffin taking on Alex the Great White Morono. This is an interesting fight right here. I see the majority of people are edging Max Griffin to win this fight. I see that he is the favorite. I don't see what you guys see in Max Griffin. This guy has really dropped the ball. I remember against Thiago Alves, that was a fight. I guess he should have won that fight. It was in Brazil and he did get robbed, but he let that fight play out so closely. He kind of gassed at the end of that fight. He kind of has that, that giraffe on ice skates type of fighting style. He's lanky. He's kind of uncoordinated. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I don't care that he's going to be stepping into the octagon as the bigger fighter with the reach advantage or whatnot. In my opinion, Alex Morono is going to be a lot more coordinated, a lot more skilled. I could see Morono just coming in and out, connecting, getting on the inside. And I like Morono to win this fight. I get it. I get why it's a close fight, but I don't understand how he's the favorite. I thought Morono would be around a minus 140, 150 in this spot right here. But then again, Morono is the type of guy, at times, he can be unreliable. He lost to Jordan Mean. He lost to Keita Nakamura. But, he goes out there. He beats guys like Zach Otto, Kenan Song, Josh Berkman. Josh Berkman was a guy, that was an easy victory for anybody at the time. And he went in there and he handled business against him. But, I get it. He doesn't have a lot of big names on his resume. Took Derek Krantz out. For those of you guys who remember Derek Krantz, took him out in Legacy FC. Kyle Noak, the old veteran Australian. Like I said, he took out Josh Berkman. I just feel, but at the same time, who the hell is Max Griffin taken out? Max Griffin, like I said, he lost to Thiago Alves at this point in the game. How about Max Griffin's last bout against Zalim Amadov? That was a very entertaining fight. I like that guy Zalim, and the UFC will be pushing him because he's a very entertaining fighter that brings it. That was a fight that Max Griffin was just gassing out, going for takedowns, just being a little pussy, trying to seal the fight off. You know what I mean? And that was a fight he was very close to being taken out in. Alex Morono is not going to gas out like that. He's a professional fighter. I don't mean like a professional fighter. He's a very professional guy. He takes his shit serious. Guy has good cardio. And I think he's going to be a professional enough to pull this victory off. He's going to come with his briefcase and whatnot and handle business. So I'm taking Alex Morono to win this fight. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is like a lock or anything like that. It's a close fight, but I'm just a little surprised to see Max Griffin coming into this fight as the favorite. The way I've heard some of you guys talking about Max Griffin and whatnot. So I got Alex Morono. We got some big boys throwing down over here in the light heavyweight division. We got Ryan Spann taking on Devin, the Brown Bear Clark. This should be a pretty good fight right here too. Up in the higher weight division, these guys both bring it. They have power. They're going to exchange. Could possibly see a finish here. And, Spann's coming in as the favorite. I definitely think that Clark is alive and well in this fight. Definitely a live dog. You take a look at Devin Clark as of recently. He pulled off that very close fight against Darko Stozic, where he was able to just kind of out-cardio him and control him a little bit more. Before that, he lost to Alexander Rakic, a very entertaining fight. He got finished in that fight, but he showed some signs, and he looked good. In my opinion, Alexander Rakic is the truth and the future of the division. So, he lost to him. No shame in that loss. I think that Rakic could be a champion right now. I think he could take John Jones out. I'm serious. I think that fight would be very close. You guys are going to see about my boy Rakic. So no real shame in that loss. And in the beginning of that fight, he actually he looked pretty good against Rakic and did some damage. Besides that, he lost to Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz, a lot of people didn't realize, is a very skilled fighter. So no real shame in that loss either. Other than that, he's went in there, handled business, took out Mike Rodriguez, Jake Collier, Josh Stansberry, lower-level fighters, but he went in there, handled business. He's a truck. He's athletic. He carries power. Obviously, Ryan Spann, this guy, he's handled business as well, recently too. Just took out Antonio Rogerio Nogueira, finished him in round 1, but Nogueira's old, so but whatever, he did handle business. Took out Luis Enrique before that. And he's handled business on the lower level or lower regional type of fights. LFA, took out Alex Nicholson, the Spartan. I like that guy. I'm a fan of his. And if you look at the guys he's lost to, he got choked out by Robert Drysdale in Legacy FC years ago. Robert Drysdale is one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the game. No shame in that loss. Lost to Carl Robertson. Carl Robertson he's shown to be an absolute stud. Trevin Giles, this is a guy too that's he's fought in the UFC. And as of recently, like I said, Spann has just been winning fights on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak. Should be a little bit more rangier here, but I think Clark is a live dog. I think if Clark connects, he could put anybody out. But yeah, I'm gonna lean Spann to win this fight. I think that he could use his range and whatnot and his size and pull this fight out. In the next bout, we got James Vick making his welterweight debut inside the octagon, taking on Niko, the hybrid Price. This guy Price, man, he's always entertaining when he steps in there. I've seen one of the nastiest finishes I've ever seen from this guy. Off his back, throwing hammer fist. Took out, the Rude Boy Brown. And that was an amazing finish. The hybrid can be down, but he's never out. He could finish the fight at any time. I'm a fan of his. Then you got James Vick. This guy's coming off 3 losses in a row. 2 of the 3 losses were nasty knockouts. One against Justin Gaethje, which you guys know I like to joke about that a little bit because, he was calling Justin Gaethje the Homer Simpson of MMA, and he's slowly becoming the Homer Simpson of MMA, especially after Niko Price takes him out in the first or second round, by a nasty hook to the chin and puts him to sleep. It's gonna be a rough night for him. That's gonna be 3 finishes in his last 4 fights, against him. It's gonna be bad for him. We'll see, James Vick moving up in weight. We'll see how that affects him. Maybe that could help his chin out a little bit. He's a very tall fighter for the lightweight division. Maybe he'll be more hydrated here, and maybe he can use his skills a little bit better. Niko Price is a guy, sometimes he starts a little slow. Maybe James Vick can take advantage of that, start to use his hands. He definitely has some good boxing. But what happens when they start to brawl it out a little bit and Niko Price just connects with one shot? It only takes one shot, and he puts Vick out. What happens if nobody gets finished and it's just a war on the feet? Niko Price still holds his own. This guy Niko Price, one of the most exciting fights I've seen in a long time was not too long ago against Tim Means. Tim Means was bringing it. Niko Price, he rose to the occasion and caught Tim Means with the counterpunch. Tim Means is in my opinion, one of the most underrated fighters, one of my favorite fighters. He made a mental mistake in there, got a little bit too overzealous and got caught. But, other than that, he got that victory. Then he lost to Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal is an absolute stud. So no shame in that loss. This is Niko Price's fight to win, in my opinion. It really is. He's welcoming James Vick up to his division. And I think it's time for Niko Price to really bring the fight in the early rounds and, not take a step backwards. Don't have a slow start. He needs to bring this fight. I think James Vick, you bring the fight to a guy like James Vick in the position that he's in, it could really mess with his head and it could set you up to get that finish. So that's what I want to see from Niko Price. And, I'm taking Niko Price to win this fight. Keeping an eye on the line. I'd like it a little bit lower than what you see here on average, around minus 185. Depending what bookmaker you're looking at. You can get it right now as low as minus 155, 165. It's not bad at all. I would like to see that get even a little bit lower, and just keep an eye on that line. So yeah, or we'll see. We'll see if James Vick has a resurrection to his career over at the welterweight division. We'll see. Stay tuned. We'll see what happens Saturday. But I'm taking Niko Price to win the fight. In the next bout, we got your boy Eryk Anders taking on Gerald Meerschaert. We got to talk about this fight here for a second. Eryk Anders, this is a guy, very entertaining fighter. He carries power in his hands. You saw him in his last bout. He did that Brazilian very dirty. That was one of the nastiest knockouts I've seen in a while. Definitely carries power for sure. Before handling Vinicius Moreira, he lost 3 in a row. Khalil Roundtree absolutely styled on Anders. I've never seen such a clinic on the feet, so that's a red flag in itself because, Anders does have power, but you've seen it before. Same thing in the Elias Theodora fight. If you play the Matador, you could make Eryk Anders your bull all day. You could have him chase you around that octagon. You could dodge those power hooks, and you could outpoint him. Anybody could do that if they play their cards right. So Gerald Meerschaert, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he's been putting in time at Rufus Sport for years. The guy's striking is not the worst. And like I said, if anyone plays their cards right, they could outstrike Eryk Anders in the feet all day. Not to mention, Gerald Meerschaert is a very crafty fighter. He'll get takedowns. He could sub you at any point. It's funny too. Let's check out the odds on this fight. Eryk Anders is around a minus 160 to a minus 170 right now, from what I'm seeing. Even as high as minus 185. I would never touch that at all. I almost want to say shame on anyone that's taking that fight. Similarly to last weekend when I said shame on anyone that's touching that with the Spivak match. So, against Tai Tuivasa. I just think that I don't know, man. There's too many question marks in Eryk Anders' game. Don't get me wrong. I would not be surprised if Eryk Anders goes out there and is able to land with his hook frequently and start to put some damage on Gerald Meerschaert and wear him out with his strikes. But as far as the line goes, hell no, I'm not touching any high minus 170s and whatnot. So the value is definitely on Meerschaert. If I had to pick one flat out, I guess I would slightly edge Anders to win the fight. But another fight, man, where you have a live dog here. Gerald Meerschaert is a live dog. This guy's had over 41 professional bouts. And shit, I guess I'm going to pick Gerald Meerschaert to win this fight. I changed my mind on that one, man. I was thinking Anders, if even straight up. I'm going to take Gerald Meerschaert. Again, I am. I just made that decision right now. Originally, I was kind of leaning Anders. I'm going to switch it up. Gerald Meerschaert to win this bout. We got some lightweight prospects here. We got Luis Violent Bob Ross Peña taking on Matt, the Steamroller Frevola. This guy, Matt Frevola, coming off Dana White's Contender Series, he looked to be a true stud in there. And he had a big setback in his UFC debut against Marco Polo Reyes. I think that he since learned from it. That was a fight that he just went out there and tried to steamroll Polo Reyes and ended up getting counter-shotted and then put out. It was nasty. He was out on his feet for a minute before he even got put out. And that's a fight that he would have won 9 out of 10 times. He would have won that fight 10 out of 10 times if he would have just played it smart and had the proper game plan, took his time, out-grappled him, and set up his striking. I think that he since learned from that mistake. He had a close fight against Lando Venata. He should have won that fight. Ended up being a draw. But that was a fight that was really his to win. And then in his last fight, I had him winning that fight. He was an underdog. That was a play that I hit. Jalen Turner. A lot of people were high on Jalen Turner, the Tarantula. I knew that Frevola has some solid wrestling and could have got takedowns, and that's exactly what he did. Now he's taking on a guy, another tall, lanky fighter in Luis Peña. The only difference is I don't know if he's going to be able to use his wrestling the same way that he did on Turner against Peña. Peña has some decent wrestling credentials. He's been putting a lot of time in over at AKA, training with some of the best wrestlers in the game, the Dagestani wrestlers. I mean, he's rolled with Khabib. He has Cormier as somewhat of a coach too. This guy could wrestle. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm leaning Peña to win this fight. I think Frevola is a stud in his own right too, but Peña is going to have the reach advantage. I like his striking. He's very confident in his striking, throws a lot of volume, scores a lot of points. And, he's coming off a win against Matt Wyman. Matt Wyman is a very similar fighter to Matt Frevola. Both those guys, short, stocky, wrestling type guys with power. In his professional career, Luis Peña's only lost to one man, Mike Trezano. Mike Trezano is a very skilled fighter. I like that guy as well. That was a split decision loss. No real shame in that loss. Peña's only 26 years old, and he's shown signs to be, to have a lot of potential to be a top fighter. So, if you can get him at the right price tag, there's nothing wrong with jumping on a fighter like this where you can capitalize and make some money. Don't spend too much money on it, though. Don't get a line that's too high. You don't want to do that. Like I said, Matt Frevola does have some solid wrestling. You have to be careful. I'm taking Peña to win this fight, though. I think his wrestling will be good enough to stuff Frevola's takedowns, keep it on the feet. I think that he wins the striking battle against Frevola. As far as possibly getting a finish against Frevola, Frevola could take a shot. I really do. I think he could take a shot. Even in that one fight where he lost against Polo Reyes, it took a lot of heavy shots to really put him out. And even since then, he's bounced back and has been in some wars. He's took some clean shots and he was still, fine. So I wouldn't expect Peña just to go out there and sleep him or anything like that. Maybe he can out-volume him, connect on the chin, then eventually, put him out with some strikes. But I'm taking Luis Peña to pull this fight off. Mackenzie Dern making her long-awaited return. She went out and had a baby, and now she's stepping in here, taking on Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas is a girl, 7-1, pretty solid fighter. So this is a big fight for Mackenzie Dern, coming off a long layoff. Especially after having a baby and whatnot. We'll see how that affects her. Of course, you guys know the deal with Mackenzie Dern's jiu-jitsu. As good as it's going to get inside the octagon in the women's division. Her dad was I don't want to say a legend, I'm not sure about that, but just a true stud of the jiu-jitsu game. So, she's been learning from the best, and she could submit anybody in there, period. But, it's more than that, though. How about her striking? She's throwing some heavy hands in there as of recently in her recent fights, and to set up her submissions with her hands. She's a tough chick. She's a real tough chick, and you could tell she has that pop. She's athletic. She's not just a little soft girly girl type of fighter. This girl, she could fucking throw down. So, Amanda Ribas, on the other hand, she has very good jiu-jitsu as well. I don't know if she'll be able to hold her own on the mat with Dern. We'll have to wait and see. But she has some nice submission victories as well. She took out Emily Whitmire in her last fight, rear naked choke in the second round. That was a nice victory for her. She's a strong girl. She's athletic as well. She does have a loss against Polyana Viana. That's kind of a red flag, in my opinion. Not too high in Vienna. Mackenzie Dern. This is a girl, too, that, you follow her on Instagram. She looks to be in good shape. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes with girls on Instagram. You guys know what I'm talking about. I don't know if it's Photoshopped. I bet it's not. It's Mackenzie Dern. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think she's doing all that. But we'll see. We'll see when the weigh-ins come to play. We'll see how she looks. We'll see if she makes weight. And I'm hoping she's taking this serious because, Amanda, if you don't take this serious, Amanda Ribas is going to come out here and try to pull off this victory. I'm telling you guys, like I said, she's a capable fighter. After saying all that, I'm definitely going to lean Mackenzie Dern. As I talked about, this girl's jiu-jitsu is on another level than pretty much any other girl that's going to be in there. And then more than that, she's aggressive. She has hands. Her boxing's coming around. And I kind of want to wait to see what she looks like in the weigh-in, but I don't think that will really even matter either way. I'm taking Mackenzie Dern to win this fight. If the line was a little bit lower, this is something that you could target. But you got a big question mark for the fact that she hasn't fought in quite some time. And, coming off that long layoff and then having a baby, that's something that I've been trying to do some research into to see, there's really not that many women that you could see them returning from having a baby and, look into the statistics of how that plays out, so it's a little bit too early in the game to see how that affects these fighters. But you got the long layoff as well. So, you don't want to put too much money out there on a high line. So make sure you watch the line. Like I said, Ribas is a capable fighter. But that all being said, definitely take a Mackenzie Dern and pay attention to that line. See if it's a possible play. In the co-main event of the evening, we got Swanson taking on Kron Gracie. I'm pumped for this fight. I think this is an excellent co-main event spot. I love what the UFC is doing here. Let's try to make a name for Kron Gracie inside the octagon. Let's get this guy going. This guy has the skills for sure. His jiu-jitsu game is going to be as good as it gets in the octagon. The guy's already 31 years old. We got no time to waste over here. This is an excellent matchup against Swanson. I touched on this a little bit earlier. Swanson, a guy that's a true G that's been around the game forever, has good striking. He is a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well, but a completely different type of black belt in jiu-jitsu. As far as I'm concerned, if Kron Gracie's a black belt, Swanson is a purple belt. I'm sorry, man. There's levels to the jiu-jitsu game. Kron Gracie, for those of you guys that aren't aware, this is Rickson, however you want to pronounce it, Gracie's son. A lot of people believe that Rickson is the greatest Gracie fighter of all time. I'd probably be one to agree with that. The guy's an absolute stud. For those of you guys that don't know about him, pull up the tape, the ancient tape of Rickson Gracie. This guy was doing shit way back in the day in Japan, back in their original days, just an absolute stud. So for those of you guys that haven't seen the documentary, Choke, definitely check that out. It's an amazing film. It's all about Kron's father, Rickson, about him, just the cameras follow him over there in Japan as he's in bouts and his type of lifestyle and how seriously he took the game. And the way that he treated his body and whatnot, and you have to feel that, at least I do, that has a direct impact on your seed. This guy, Kron Gracie, an absolute stud as well. He has went in there and handled business against everyone that he's been locked inside the cage with so far, or the ropes over there in Japan. But he's taken out Tatsuya Kawajiri. He's a Japanese legend. He got the submission in the second round, but it was a very tricky fight. First off, the three guys that he finished before that, he submitted all of them. Just no one worth of note, so I'm not going to look too much into that. Kawajiri, like I said, this guy's a Japanese legend, strong grappler, but it was almost like a grappling match. They were just hugging each other, throwing knees, and then getting the fight down to the mat. We really didn't get to see how Gracie's going to perform when you got a guy that could strike with you, and especially if that guy can keep the fight on the feet. So that's a big question mark. That's a big X factor. Then Gracie makes his UFC debut against Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy. Alex Caceres didn't have nothing for him. He was dragged down to the mat and subbed out quickly in the first round. And that was a fight again. It didn't get to answer any questions about Kron Gracie's striking. How is he going to perform when a guy is stuffing his takedowns and then just throwing shots at his face? Swanson is no joke on the feet. This guy has very good boxing. And you saw it as of recently. Even in Swanson's recent losses, the guy, he looked good in those losses, to be honest. Against Shane Burgos, it was a split decision loss. Could have went either way. He looked good in that fight. His striking was definitely up to par. He's on a 4-fight losing skid, but against guys like Brian Ortega, Frankie Edgar, Hanato Moicano, and Shane Burgos. Brian Ortega pulled off the guillotine it was in a nasty fashion. He pulled off the submission. That's something you could look into because Ortega is a submission specialist, but Ortega does have some striking to go along with that. We still got to see what Gracie's striking is all about. Here's one thing to note as well. Swanson, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he hasn't submitted a guy in over a decade, 10 years. And during that time frame, he's been submitted 6 times himself. I could definitely see Kron Gracie getting the submission here. I could definitely see, if Kron Gracie gets this fight to the floor, I could see this fight playing out similarly to Gracie's last fight against Bruce Leroy. I could see that. And that sounds kind of crazy, like I said, because Swanson's a black belt. I don't think that Cub's going to have anything for him on the mat. I've seen Swanson get choked out so many times. He leaves holes in his jiu-jitsu game, and a guy like Gracie will find that hole quickly and put you out. So I think Kron Gracie's going to pull off a rear naked choke or something like that. I think eventually this fight will hit the mat, and I could see Kron Gracie just taking control, getting some hooks in, and pulling off the finish. I would love to see Gracie. I would almost love to see him go in here, show a little bit of striking, eventually get that takedown, and then work some ground and pound. I want to see some layers in this guy's game. I think that Kron Gracie has all the makings to be an absolute star in the game. He's a descendant of the true legends of the game, the Gracie family, and I'm a fan of this guy. So I'm really pulling for Kron Gracie, and it's a line that you definitely want to keep an eye on. I've seen some movement on it as of recently. Make sure you're on your P's and Q's and you guys are paying attention to the line in this fight. And if you guys are feeling Cup Swanson, if you feel like he could stuff the takedowns and outstrike Kron on the feet, shout out to you if you pull it off. I'm taking Kron Gracie, and I think Gracie probably even gets the finish. All right, guys, we made it to the main event of the evening. We got Joanna Jedrzejczyk taking on Michelle Waterson. And, before we even get into this main event breakdown, I want to take a quick second to give a shout out to all the loyals, all the guys that tune in, listen to my breakdowns for every fight card, the ones that are commenting on the channel. Shout out to City Boy Mills. Shout out to, Bobby Bow Knuckles. Shout out to guys like, let's see who else we got here. Amro, Mana, he's always, showing love, commenting. PJ always comment on the channel. Guys like that, I'll continue to shout a lot of you guys out, man. I appreciate you guys. And fuck all the haters. Fuck all the guys that come in periodically talking shit. I love it. Continue it. And, a quick note to all you guys. Always remember this, man, for all you guys, no matter what you're doing in life. If you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong. You definitely want to have haters. And you'll notice this in life. The greater you start to do with certain types of things, and I'm not even talking about betting on MMA and doing fight breakdowns and whatnot. I'm talking about anything in life. Whatever you guys are doing, you'll always notice. Say you meet the beautiful girl that's has everything going for herself. You start dating her and whatnot. You're gonna notice the haters are gonna start coming out. You're gonna see it. You're gonna feel the evil eye from a lot of people. Sadly enough, that's just how human nature seems to be. Not everybody's like that, though. There's a lot of loyal, good people, that support whatever you're doing. You got your family and whatnot. So, always keep that in mind here. And, on that note, we're going to transition into this main event breakdown. Shout out to everybody that stood along for the ride on this breakdown. And don't get it twisted. We have a lot of big things coming from the teller. Stay tuned. I'm going to be breaking some big news after this event. So stay tuned to next weekend's breakdown or next fight card's breakdown. I'm going to be breaking some big news for the teller over here. And let's get to this main event right here. All right, so we got Joanna Jedrzejczyk taking on Michelle Waterson. Joanna Jedrzejczyk, like I talked about earlier, how quickly you guys forget what a star this chick was. She had a couple minor setbacks. Obviously, Rose Namajunas caught her early in the first bout. The second bout was extremely close. You could tell that Joanna was a little bit hesitant in regards to her chin and whatnot. But that was a very close bout. She went in there, handled business against Tecia Torres. She pretty much definitively dominated that fight. But, she had some signs. You could tell, again, she was hesitant with her chin and whatnot. And she gave Tecia Torres probably a little bit too much respect in there. But then she goes out, she takes on Valentina Shevchenko. You could see that her chin is it's a little bit more smooth now. For any female fighter to step in there with Valentina Shevchenko and not be finished and take shots from her, that the chin is slowly getting back to normal. Because don't get it twisted, man. When you get put out, it takes some time, man, for your brain to heal and rest up. A lot of fighters that get put out are more prone to being put to sleep more frequent around that time. So I think every fight that goes on and the more time passes, the better that Joanna Jedrzejczyk will be and the more confident she will be to sit in the pocket and exchange with her striking, using her very talented footwork and whatnot. And I think that this fight right here is perfect for her. Michelle Waterson, she has a lot of hype, but she's not going to be able to hold her own on the feet. I know she has that little karate style, little, front leg kick, this and that, and does that little Jackson wink, hyperextending kick to the knee and whatnot. it's not going to be enough for Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's going to be in and out. Her hands are going to be nasty. She's going to be piecing apart Michelle Waterson. Michelle Waterson's little head and arm throw that she's been getting away with on girls like Felice Herrig, Courtney Casey in a split decision victory, and Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who I hate to say it at this point in the game, Karolina Kowalkiewicz is a complete wash. She's done. She looks like an old lady out there. She doesn't have her feet under her. She's very unathletic. She's done. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, that is not the case with her. This girl, I mean, let's not forget what this girl's done in the game. Her striking is as good as it comes. She's over here down the street from me at American Top Team in Coconut Creek. I follow her on Instagram. She's like best friends with this Brazilian chick. I forget her name. Whatever she is. I'm sure a lot of you guys follow her. She's like a supermodel and a excellent Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. These girls are together at all times, so I expect to see leaps and bounds in Joanna's jiu-jitsu game. And I'm serious. These girls literally are together nonstop. They're at the beach together every day. They're training together every day. I think Joanna is really targeted in on her jiu-jitsu. So, if Michelle Waterson tries to throw a little head and arm choke, don't be surprised if Joanna jumps on her back and pulls off a rear naked choke or something like that. Not saying that's what I expect to happen, but just don't be surprised. But what I expect to see happen here is for Joanna to just unleash her striking, to be quicker than Michelle Waterson, to tag up her face, bloody up Michelle Waterson, and we're going to see vintage Joanna Jędrzejczyk here. The line's very high. I'm okay with it as a parlay leg, honestly, or anywhere around -400. I'm cool with it. I just don't see a path of victory for Michelle Waterson. I don't see Michelle Waterson sitting on top of Joanna Jędrzejczyk for 5 rounds, pulling off a decision. Joanna Jędrzejczyk has always had great takedown defense. You've seen her in the past, what she's capable of. Even if you get her down, she's right back up to her feet. And then on the feet, I just don't see any way Michelle Waterson outpoints Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So I think it's a solid victory right there. So parlay that if you guys want. And I'll leave you with you guys. I'll leave you guys with that pick right there and that breakdown for the main event. And like I said, man, shout out to all the supporters. I'm pumped up for this event. And like I said, I got some big news and some big things to coming up this next week. So stay tuned for all that. I got a lot of material that's going to be putting out over here. And yeah, man, shout out to all the supporters. Signing out. The Teller. The MMA fortune teller.
The Teller. The Teller. The Teller. The Teller. The Teller.